Um, so you will find that they suggest that you look at CINAHL, Medline, and PubMed, and then they make a suggestion for a couple others. If you pull down, you go back to all subjects, and you look for social work, they suggest PsycInfo, SocInfo, and then 3 others. If you, let's see, what else do we have in our class? Information science. You see there is ACM Digital Library and IEEE Explorer. So these are part of the, I think ACM, the C stands for computing, and one of the E's in IEEE Explorer stands for electrical, well, it stands for electrical and electrical and electronics engineers, and the Institute of Engineering and Technology. Goodness. And then if we're looking for law, you can see legal studies, they recommend Hein Online and the legal collection. They used to have Lexis, but Lexis is expensive and they decided not to keep carrying it, which is really unfortunate because it's kind of necessary for legal research. Okay, so let me start at the end and say what we're looking for. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about using the library to find academic research. Now, I have done some searches, and these are some articles in the areas of this class, and we'll just click on them. And this is an article about writing in social work. Ethical professional writing in social work and human services. So I just want to sort of look at it so you see what an academic article looks like. They showed a lot of sort of covers of academic versus popular, but they didn't really show you what's on the inside of it. Now I got this through, I think it was SocIndex, because that is what they said was the way to do it. Almost every time you will get an article from an academic journal, they'll have all the sort of publication information on that top page, and it may even show up on all the pages. So this is a journal called Ethics and Social Welfare. It was published in 2015. This article is in volume 9, number 4, pages 359 to 374. And then there is a URL, and this URL is a DOI. A DOI stands for Document Object Identifier, which is some kind of technology way of determining things. And when we talk about citation, that will be one of the options to put the DOI of the journal. This is the title of the journal. These are the authors of the journal. And this is a really helpful thing to be aware of. They don't always list it, but the key words that the authors have identified as sort of central to this article are ethical, professional writing, client-centered writing, writing values and principles. The reason why it's really helpful is that if you find an article that's really useful to you, then if you see what its keywords are, you can use those keywords to search for other things. Down here is the publishing information, Routledge, Kegan Paul, Routledge, I guess it's Taylor and Francis now. That's just a piece of information. You will not need that for the citation. You will notice, like they said in the article, that they tend to be long. I guess it told us how many pages. It was 359 to 374, so 18 pages. And it is organized with some headings. So it's divided up into subheadings. One of the things to be very aware of when you're reading an academic article are the subheadings. And it probably is a good idea to not just jump in and read the whole thing, but rather see what the headings are. So, and kind of get a sense of where the article is going from that. So their headings here are, I think there's one before, why good writing matters in social work and why it is difficult to do. So you can see why I would pick this article as an example. And then that led them to the importance of ethical professional writing. And that leads them to our approach to ethical professional writing. And then you see here, they have a first degree heading, values and principles, and then they have subset into their second degree heading. That is, these are values that must be expressed in the writing or, you know, that you have to have. And those of you who are in social work know that these are the sort of the principles that all social work seeks after: respect for persons, social justice, professional integrity, accountability, transparency, accurateness, judiciousness, and credibility, and reflexivity, authenticity, sensitivity, purpose. And then finally, persuasion. Social work also seeks to persuade. Then at the end, there's a conclusion. So a lot of times when I am reading an article the first time, I will read the introduction and then jump to the conclusion, because that gives me a handle of the overall thing. And then I know what to focus on as I read. One of the things you will see in an academic article is a list of references. And these references will be in some kind of form that is required by the journal. Some of them will just require something like APA. Some of them will have their own requirements. This looks like it's sort of like APA, but slightly different. And you notice there are a lot of sources. So that's what an academic journal will look like. And that's what we're trying to find here. So going back to the library, let's say we're going to look at social work and see how I found something like that. So I went to the social work link under the topic source. And the first one is PsycInfo. It says it's the best bet. So I click on that. I'm surprised actually it required me to log in with my ULR email address since I'm on campus. But I think maybe they require, for security, everybody to log in, even if you're on campus now. So the first thing it will ask, whoops. Oh, doesn't say. So pay attention to what it asks you for. It wanted my email, not my net ID. All right, so this gives us the screen for searching. Now, up here in the top left, it says EBSCOhost. That tells us this is an EBSCO database. EBSCO is a company that started publishing databases. Originally, it was in paper. And then as the world moved into the online world, they moved everything to digital. They also started buying up every single database, well, a lot of the databases. So if you get to an EBSCO database, you can use search through multiple databases at the same time. So the one I started with was APA PsycInfo, but I'm going to click on APA Psych articles, and then the other one that it suggested for social work was SocIndex. And then I'm going to click on Academic Search Complete just because Academic Search Complete is sort of a generic, all academic kind of source. And then I'm also going to click on Communication and Mass Media Complete and Communication Source because I'm interested in communication, not just the discipline. So my new search, it now is, I'm searching APA PsycInfo, and then if I click on Search All, it tells me all the other databases I'm searching at the same time. Now, the basic key from all searching is to sort of start large and kind of keep working to smaller and smaller and see how you can narrow it so that you get a reasonable amount of material that is useful for you. So I'm interested in writing and social work. So I'm going to type in writing in the box, and I'm going to type in social work in the box. And I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to narrow it in any shape or form. Just realized I can take this off since nobody's here. And it turns out I end up with 5,541 sources. Too many to deal with. So, and what that's doing is it's giving me any source in any of these databases that the word writing shows up and the words social and work show up in any shape or form. Which means that I'm going to be ending up with a lot of totally irrelevant things. And you can see how irrelevant some of them are if you change the sort boxes. The default for all these is usually relevance, and this one it is. If I changed it to date newest, You can see that something to do with writing and social work is probably on each of these. So it's sort of related. That's pretty good, actually. That's more relevant than I thought. But I'm going to go back to relevance. I'm going to figure out some ways to narrow it. And that's the key to using databases, figuring out ways to narrow it. The first one has to do with fields. And I should say that this process that I'm going through, there is a handout on the website that walks you through the exact same process on a totally different topic. So you can go and look at that, and that can remind you of how to go about doing this. But the first process is narrowing the field. Each of the disciplines does have a slightly different terminology. Each of the databases will approach this slightly different, but in all cases, there will be options for where to look. So the default is, all text or everywhere. A slightly narrower is to look at just the text itself and not any of the attachments. If you have an article that you want to find, you can, and you know the author, you can just look up the author and put that in the search box and find all the articles by that author. Title is, of course, really narrow. If I narrow this to writing in the title and writing and social work in the title, I narrow from several thousand to 166. So these are definitely going to be more likely to be relevant. Framing writing as a social work skill, evaluating a pilot intervention. That sounds like it might be useful. From university writing to workplace writing, the case of social work undergraduate students at the University of Botswana, which I actually took a look at as I was looking for these. And even though it's about Botswana, it seems pretty relevant to the United States. Social work students and faculty testing the convergence of perspectives on student writing abilities. So this is looking at the difference between faculty perspectives and students' perspectives. Here's another source on writing in Botswana. I guess they're doing a lot of research there. Developing grassroots writing resources, a novel approach to writing within the social work discipline. I bet you that has something to do with reading novels. So that was definitely a way to narrow it. Just for the sake, so there were 166 there. If we change it to subject terms, remember I pointed out those keywords listed at the bottom of the first page of that article. That's what a subject term is. And there will be, again, depending on the database, they'll have different terminology to describe this. But these are terms that they have sort of selected as central and to use as sort of, they're kind of like tagging, really. And so let's look at this framing writing as a social work skill. When we look at this framing writing as a social work skill entry, we get a lot of information. And we can use all this information for our searching of other things. And for our deciding whether or not it's a useful piece of research. So, of course, it tells us where this social work, this article is. This is from the Journal of Baccalaureate Social Work. Notice that it is a hot link. So I click on it, and then I get all of the articles in that journal that they have that are in our database. If I click on the author, the same thing happens. We get all the articles in the database by this author, and there is apparently only one. We get keywords, so BSW education, writing skills, and writing exercises. So what that means is that instead of using the word writing as a keyword, perhaps we want to use writing skills as a keyword, because that will narrow it, because writing is used a lot of times in a lot of different contexts. The other place that are like that are subjects, and these are subjects that the discipline, the journal has decided are important, or the database has decided. So writing skills, written communication, social workers. So what this tells you is you can click on one of those, and this DE means it's a subject term. I really have no idea why DE is the abbreviation. So that's the same as using the subject term. And then the other one was social workers. And so we'll use that as a term. And we will search for those things. And that gets us to a really nice limited set of resources, 40, which is a reasonable thing to look at. And you see this article that I showed you originally comes up in that list. And here's writing strategies for school social workers, reflective writing assignments to help social work trainees, administrative writing, advocacy. So there's, you notice in the list, this includes books as well as articles. Sounds like an interesting article. This is a whole book on the history of writing and social work in the United States. That would be interesting to me, probably not to you. Framing writing as a social work skill, back to evaluating a pilot intervention. So what have we done? We found out what the subject terms were that are used in articles similar to what we're interested in. And we use those subject terms for our search. And that was one way to narrow. We have other ways down here as well. All along the left column, there are ways of limiting your sources. So we were talking about scholarly peer-reviewed journals, and that's what that video talked about a little. And let's try narrowing just to scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So we had 40, now we have 29. So that eliminated, what, 11. The publication date is also something that you can use. We're down to 29. And so I like to keep things fairly modern. So let's do the last 25 years. So let's limit it to 1995 to 2020. So that got us down from 29 to 26. And over here you see all the limiters that I've been using. And so some academic journals, and down at the bottom here, it tells us which database they appeared in. And some of them will have appeared in multiple databases, but what they're saying is that this is the database, if it was only one, 21 to, no. So it might have been, like the APA PsycInfo may also be in a communication source. I think this is the only, though, if it's only in one or whatever. Okay, let me stop. Does anybody have any questions?
Ms. Madsen, it's
Yes.
Veronica. Okay, now, as far as using this, are we just going to be using this to get information to help us during our interview?
Both.
Okay.
You can use it to help you during the interview, but the paper itself can use these articles. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if you can, let me try something. So this is what the assignment is, to do research into writing in a discipline. Oh. It's interesting.
So this is a separate like assignment from the actual interview we're going to be doing?
So yes, this is a separate assignment, but it's part of the whole thing. So in order to write this report on research into writing in X discipline, I'm asking you to do a couple of different kinds of research. The first one we started with is interview research. And that's what you're working on right now. The second one is scholarly articles. And that's what I'm talking about right now. Now, you don't have to do a whole lot of research into the scholarly articles. The purpose of me asking you to do this is I want you to become a little bit familiar with the research tools available in your profession and discipline. So I want you to be able to find sources that have to do with your profession or discipline. And so I'm asking you to do a little bit of research into scholarly articles, locating them. And then I'll talk about on Thursday, another, which is disciplinary organizations. And so ultimately what you're going to end up with is an article, is a report rather, about writing, and you will have a couple topics. Let's say you have 3 topics, all related to writing in the discipline. And then for each of those topics, you might have source 1, source 2, and source 1 might be the interview, and source 2 might be an article. And then for topic 2, you might have that same article, and then another article. And then for topic 3, you might have source 1 again, source, and source 3. Does that make sense? In other words, you're going to be doing research, trying to find out as much as you can about writing in your discipline. And it's kind of a mini research project. I'm not asking you to do a whole lot. I'm asking you to do an interview. I'm asking you to use some scholarly articles, and I'm asking you to find out about the disciplinary or any disciplinary resources. I don't know how to correct this discipline. It drives me nuts. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Does everybody understand what I'm talking about?
And did you change it to where this whole thing will be an APA, like we have to write the abstract and everything?
No.
Just like the APA format, correct?
No, I'm asking you to do a report format. And for APA, what I want you to do is a citation in APA, unless your discipline asks for something else. Like, for example, Reagan is in information technology. I don't think they ask for APA. I think they ask for something else. And one of the things probably she needs to find out is what is the way they cite sources in information technology. Or law doesn't use APA either. Does that answer your question, Ariana?
Yeah, so it's report-based format, and then just the citations or resources are going to be in APA format or whatever that discipline requires.
Yes, perfect. So what I would really like you to do right now is to practice doing some research in the databases. Which you should be able to do if you're on a computer. If you just open up another window, you can minimize the Zoom window, and how about if I divide you up into groups, then you can share it with each other. That's probably the way to do it. Okay, I'm going to divide you up into groups, again, random. Well, no, I'm not going to do it random. I'm going to do it by discipline if I can. A couple of you are not in a discipline. And then at least one of those you people should have a setup that you have a computer, so that you know, a laptop or a desktop computer, so it's enough to work on the library while you're in Zoom. And that person, so the first thing to do in the group is decide who, I will divide you up into, I think, groups of 3. And the first thing in the group is to decide who's going to be controlling the search. And then that person will share with the rest of you in the group. And you will all, and just see if you can find anything. And one of the things about searching is you need to be real flexible. You need to just kind of do trial and error until you can see you find something that's interesting.
Databases, and you know, just typed in the search bar, you know, writing and nursing, and there was a multitude of different types of articles that popped up for us.
How many? Or
There was a lot of different ones.
I noticed when I was looking up articles that the nursing profession talks a lot about getting academic research articles published. They really want nurses to be sort of professionalized.
Right.
That seems to be a common thing. How about the rest of you guys? Did you find some things?
Yes.
All right. So that was just kind of like a little tip of the iceberg of the process. But I wanted to make sure that everybody had at least seen how to log into the library databases and practiced with the different tools. We will continue as we go along. In the website, which I hope you can see now, I put up week 8, and to tell you the truth, week 7, week 8, and week 9, I put up week 9 as well. Really, we're going to be using material from all of these weeks. It's not it's because research is not a strict linear thing. You have to start one place and move in another place. So I've sort of, in the abstract, divided them up. On week 7, I did add something about report writing format that wasn't there last week. And so everybody should take a look at that. And then on, I also, I did a quick thing to those. On week 8, there's a lot of material about academic research. And I urge you to read and watch as much as you can. This is a link to very specific help videos the University of Victoria in Canada did, really helpful, I think, about that kind of just show you through searches. This is the sample search that I said that I made, and I recommend, especially if this is all new to you, that you open this up and even print it out and then just do the exact opposite process. This is getting an introduction to the citation basics. This is not about one type of citation or another, and but it's for you to use. And this is a list of resources on citing. Over here is this handout of articles that I just, I showed you that I found the social work article from. And what I'd like you to do is open one of these up and take a look at it and think about how, if you were to use it, and you can definitely use the ones that I have come up with. If you were to use it, how would you use it? How might it relate? To pick up to the question that somebody asked earlier, I think Veronica, are these articles to try to figure out what you should talk about while you're interviewing? And definitely yes. I think if you read these articles, that will give you some ideas for your interviewing process. And of course, if you want to look at other ones that you can find as well. So for Thursday, you need to have finished up your interview. And if you have a chance, start dealing with academic research by reading one of those articles and by reading these resources and by doing your own scholarly search. Okay? Do we have any questions?
Ms. Madison, you mentioned that Euler doesn't participate in LexisNexis Law anymore. Do they do Westlaw?
No, they're very, very expensive. And Westlaw is even more expensive than the Lexis. Well, Westlaw, they don't really do Westlaw except at law schools. What those companies do is at the law schools, they give the law schools a real low rate so that they get their students sort of addicted to it. And then when they go out and practice, they'll spend all this money on having it. There are a lot of there are becoming some open resources